Hello guys, welcome to our channel. This is Babarol. In today's video I want to talk about my new build for open world PvE for solo Untamed. It's a double mace weapon, so the new weapon for ranger, and it is one of the best power builds you can play in open world. Consider it also an update to my existing Untamed build. I will be comparing the two builds and why the difference, why we're going with mace. I will be explaining the weapon, talking about different options in build, gear, and you would have a direct link in the description and also timestamp, so you can go skip through the video if you want, but stick around because it's going to be a long one and rich with information. So without further ado, let's get right into the build itself. So we're taking skirmishing, nature magic, and untamed. In skirmishing, we benefit from getting swiftness and fury from weapon swap, which is one of 4 sources of fury in the build besides copying the boon from the bit itself, so it's very constant. Simply by switching weapons, you already keep very close to permanent fury while you already have other sources of fury in general. And you gain a lot of swiftness to compensate with existing swiftness that you will get from Warhorn, since we're using Warhorn. So it's very good to have. The last minor giving you extra critical damage and critical chance if you're flanking, and if you fight in a boss with Defiance bar, it's considered always flanking, so you always get this. So it's not crazy useful if you're fighting normal mobs, but if you're soloing a boss or doing a big event with bosses, you will always get it, so it's very reliable to have. And our choices, we go with Sharpened Edges, Strider Strings, and Vicious Quarry. This trait we take it for the weapon swap and for the critical chance and frosty that we can get from Vicious Quarry. This trait will make Fury give you 40% critical chance, so you don't need to invest this much in precision or something like that, and you will get a huge amount of ferocity. And combine that with Hunter Tactics, that's on any boss almost permanent 50% critical chance from those two traits, Permanent Fury that already increased its chance, and Hunter Tactics. Also, we get a little bit extra power and a source of might from this, and since the first line is completely useless, we already have sources of vigor, we don't use traps, I go with Sharpened Edges in general, since a single boon doesn't really matter this much, and it can add a little bit to our DPS. Now for nature magic, it is the one we count on for our boon build. This is basically a boon untamed. So the minors make the beast skill, which is any skill you can control for your bit, like this one for Jacaranda or this one for Turtle, something like that. It will give you regeneration for you and everyone around you, and your bit will always take a copy of any boon you have, which means the bit will be spammed with boons even more than you. For example, let's mark our bit, and once we give ourselves that, it gets, as you see, double the might, because I already gave it since it is on the radius, it took it, and it took double the boon again since it's a copy of what I have, and even the duration itself is doubled, as you can see. So if in solo open world, whenever you give boons to your surrounding, like for example Let Loose trait, as you can see, it took 10 mites and doubles the quickness, because you will give it as a support, you will give the boons to everyone around you, and your bit is included since it's a solo style, and it will get another copy because of this trait. And you can copy the boon back and forth by using the healing skill. So if you go like that, and you can copy it again, as you can see, and your bit already at 25 stacks of might. And that's how it harmonizes with itself. The last trait is simply your regeneration healing increased by 20% and you gain concentration by 240. So because of this straight line, you keep permanent boons for you and your bit like beasts all the time. It never falls, you're always regenerating, always having 25 stacks of might, you're always having quickness. It's just beautiful to have. And we take Bountiful Hunter and Evasive Purity and Invigorating Bond. Bountiful Hunter, since we have a lot of boons, we can keep constant boons almost everything in the game except Ages and Alacrity. We can pretty much juggle them around. Even if something fall, it will just come back up, and you get 1% extra damage for every unique boon on you. So all those boons will increase, give you a modifier that's very high for your damage. I go with Evasive Priority as a source for Condition Cleanse. That is very reliable. It cleanses 2 conditions, one that damage and one that not, without cooldown anytime you dodge. And the other choices, we already have Permanent Might and Fury easily, and it count on swiping bits, and we do not want to swap bits as much as possible. You want to stick to a single bit in this, so you keep moving boons back and forth between you and not simply wasting it by change into another bit that you have to start giving it boons again. And the last one is given healing from regeneration, and we already have a lot of healing, and we don't need another source of regeneration from Warhorn, so clearly Evasive Priority is needed since we don't have this much condition cleanse in the build. The last one, Invigorating Bond, giving you a little bump of healing and a source for vigor and protection, whatever the bit you are using once you use a beast skill, like this one. As you can see, I gain regeneration, vigor, and protection. It's also on a 20-second cooldown to harmonize with this 20-second cooldown, and since we don't have Alacrity in the build, so normally we always have 20-second cooldown, except for Turtle, clearly, because it's much longer than this. Now for Untamed itself. We get the Unleash Ambush skill on our weapons, and we get extra vitality and also the life seed or the healing seed that you can get from the Unleash Ambush skill. We get Vow of the Untamed, the trait that makes us very tanky, because if the bit is unleashed, not us, we lower strike damage or power damage happen to us by 25%, and if we are unleashed, we increase our outgoing damage by 25%. Our choices are Nature Shield, and Enhancing Impact, and Let Loose. Nature Shield, I like to add some survivability since we don't use the Restorative Strike to fill our health like crazy all the time. We count only on healing from the Unleash Ambush skill, from our healing skill, and sources like that. So a little bit of barrier, multiple sources of barrier is very useful. Besides, this one is for CC, we don't have much condition, and this one is very minor increase in your damage because it only affects this skill, so I found clearly Nature Shield is better. We run in this build 3 skills from the cantrip, which mean every one of them will give barrier to us and our bit, so it helps the bit even survive more. And for other choices, Enhancing Impact for quickness or stability, depending on when you do your CC, either you're unleashed or your bit is unleashed. If you are unleashed, you give quickness. If your bit's unleashed, you get stability. So we have multiple sources of stability in this build and multiple sources of quickness. This one and Let Loose. Let Loose itself can give you permanent quickness, because you can do it back to back. It resets the Unleash Ambush skill if you are in combat. Let's take a look at it. Let's say I'm in combat with this one. So I use the Unleash, I switch open, I use Unleash again, and I have a lot of quickness, and I can copy it from my bit. So I can keep permanent quickness with this only, depending on my stats, which we'll get through it in a second. And also I can CC the enemy while I am unleashed to gain even more quickness with the trait Enhancing Impact. And as we explained, Let Loose will give quickness and might to everyone around you, including your bit. You copy the boom back and forth, you can have permanent might and quickness easily. Now that's very simple for the build. What you can change with this is basically probably Nature Shield, it's up to you, but any other thing it will change the build drastically. And this is the highest damage possible if you want to play in a solo form as a build in general. You need Vicious Quarry and you need the boons to be as strong as we can. And for our skill choices, we go with Heal as 1 because it's a strong healing skill, but it can copy the boon back and forth, so it's a main source of really keeping up our boons if possible. And also if you had to change bit to survive or the bit itself died or anything, you can give the new boons to the bit with very long duration and start taking it from it again. So it's a way to also keep up your damage, since a huge part of our damage will be coming from our bits. In a build like that, the bit is very strong and continue as a part of your DPS. We go with Exploding Spores as CC and another source of might or protection if needed, but you will never kinda need the protection from it. We have more than permanent protection, like 200 uptime, 200% or something like that. So always use it while unleashed to get the might, but honestly you have also multiple sources of might, so it's really up to you. Or depending on the situation, if you're running and your bit is dead in very difficult situation, you can get the protection clearly. We go with Signet of the Wild for extra ferocity. You can also use this skill as a CC source, but you never really need that. You have insane amount of CC in the build, so it depends on your need. So generally I just keep it, I never cast it if possible, and it just increase your ferocity for you and your bit. My stun break is Mutate Condition. To survive all the condition, it's extra source of fury if I am unleashed, or vigor if my bit is unleashed. So if I'm trying to engage fast and I need fury and I wasn't on Warhorn or something, or I didn't want to swap weapons, I can simply cast it. If vigor fall, remember vigor also mean 1% extra damage because this trait. So you can simply cast it like that and you gain vigor, but also you can gain extra vigor from this skill instead of super speed if you are not unleashed. If you are unleashed, you will get super speed instead of the vigor. Every boon in this build have multiple sources. Might can come from the axe, can come from the warhorn, can come from this skill, can come from the trait Let Loose, and you can copy it again. And there is also tiny sources like this trait. Fury can come from this, from Vicious Quarry, from Weapon Swipe, from the warhorn. Protection can come from this, from the turtle, from the trait Invigorating Bond, from the mace skills. Also regeneration can come from the mace skills, can come from this trait. Stability can come from this, can come from the effect Force of Nature, can come from the elite, can come from this trait. Quickness can come from here and from here. I can keep going on this. Every boon have multiple sources, so if it fall, you don't have to wait for a single skill, you simply keep producing it more using other skills. Now for the gear. The gear is honestly, it depends on what you want. There is a very big room of change in it. So you have to balance between your power, precision, ferocity, and boon duration. Those are the 4 stats that you care about. Nothing else truly matter. You don't need toughness, you don't need healing, you can survive and withstand even solo legendaries with this build, with the amount of barrier, healing, and damage reduction you can already get from it, and the help from your bed to tank for you even. Those are the 4 stats that you care about. If you want a little bit more damage, if you're fighting or moving between normal mobs fast and not really fighting bosses this much, I have the perfect setup for you, and you can change only one thing. So the idea is, do you want 100% boon duration, or you can drop it a bit since we have already like 200% of the boons, and simply add a little bit into your ferocity. And for this I have full diviner armor, 2 diviner rings. Accessories are assassin with a back and amulet, and my weapon are berserker. With this exact setup I can have 100% 0.7, like it's a very minor change, boon duration, and when I have fury I can have almost 90%, but remember we have this trait to give us extra 10%, which means it's technically 100% critical chance if you're fighting a boss, and 90 if you're fighting normal mobs, no defense bar, and not even flanking. So basically when you really need the 100%, it's against bosses, and you technically have it against bosses all the time, since you have Permanent Fury and you have the trait Tactic Hunters. The only thing you can change is either run Rune of the Firework or run Rune of the Scholar. With Rune of the Scholar, you will increase your ferocity, like this is our maximum ferocity now with the Rune of the Firework. But if you change this, you have more ferocity, and everything else is the same. Those are the 2 runes next to each other, so you can have 175 power from here and 175 power from here, but you get extra like 225 ferocity from this one extra that you didn't have from the Rune of the Firework. And the DPS is very similar. The true changes happen when depending on your rotation, and you're not fighting a golem in open world. You simply need to dodge this, so you stick to axe a little bit longer. You can be in melee, or you need the barriers that will come next, or the stability, so you stick to mace longer, so the DPS can move through that. So it's really up to you what you want to do. And if you don't even want to stick to my exact setup, you can simply change it. Add more berserker if you want, add more diviner if you want. It's really up to you. You can adjust the boons and the stats as much as you want it. It's not set in stone. What you really need to focus on, you need some boon duration. You can't play this build without boon duration. The boon will drop significantly, the might will go away, so you have to have like 60% at least boon duration with this build. And for that also my sigils, I'm running Force to increase my DPS, and I'm running a superior sigil of concentration for 10% boon duration. So if you run the Fireworks and the concentration sigil, those alone are 35% boon duration, and you get some from this trait for a little bit more, also like 17% or something like that. That's even before you add anything. And I'm running food for it too. So those are the 2 kind of food I'm running. It's holographic super cheesecake. It will give you power and it will give you concentration, so it add a little bit to your boon duration. It's how I get to this exact number. And I'm going with soul pastries for 100% concentration and 70 power. So those 2 utility and power, I'm running it permanently. Every time they end on me, I'm running again, and that's how I reach this exact number, as we said here, and on the boon duration itself. But those stats are not set in stone. In fact, because this build have X in it and this skill, so it have some condition damage, and it also have the sharpened edges trait that can actually produce third of your hits, since it's a chance on critical chance by 33% for your skills and your bit skills to apply bleeding. You can try this build with Celestial. I very advise against it because you will lose around 2.5k DPS. This build can be around close to 20k DPS in solo gameplay, like you run around and killing bosses. But if you go with Celestial, it's barely 17.5 or something like that. It really lose a lot. You will gain extra healing, extra toughness, but the build doesn't have serious condition. Maces are a loss of damage to run on any build that will try to utilize condition no matter what you do in it. So if you want to do it, or I know a lot of people would have Celestial on them and not have any other gear or whatever, so they would ask, can I use it with Celestial? Yes, you can, and you still have significantly high damage. 17k DPS is very high, but it's a lot of loss too. You lost basically about 15% of your DPS, of your total DPS, and you don't need the extra healing, basically. You don't need the toughness. You can be very strong with this build, even without the Celestial. So, back at it again. It's Diviner with Rune of the Firework, or the Scholar. I have my axe and warhorn, double maces, both of them running force, and sigil of concentration, my pack piece, amulet, and accessory are all assassin, and my 2 rings are diviner again. Now for the relic, this is quite unique one. I use the Relic of Nouyrs, or whatever that pronounced, and I know that for some that will be surprising. So this relic is basically, for me, will give me a stack every interval, which is 3 seconds. So it just keep counting on the back of my head. I don't do anything. I simply fight and go my rotation normally, and I will keep getting stacks. When I reach 10 stacks, basically after 30 seconds at this point, it will give me this effect known as Hunger. It will increase my damage and condition damage by 25% and lower the incoming damage to me and condition damage by 15%, and give me 15% healing from outgoing boons and condition and from outgoing attack damage. I don't know what to really mean for the boon stuff, but it simply will turn 15% of the damage you apply to your enemy to healing to yourself. So this sigil became 30-second cooldown, half the effect of Restorative Strike. This effect happened for 5 seconds instead of 4, but it will give you also some of your damage back as healing, exactly as a Restorative Strike. Without sacrificing the trait Let Loose, we can simply run the same effect. And because of this relic, I can kill this golem while I have my surrounding with extreme damage environment. I can have it change environment to toggle off area damage and extreme. I can still solo it and kill it just like that. No boons, just going with my own thing. Because of this amount of healing, survivability, and a loss in damage, or reducing damage. So basically, when you have this effect, it will reduce damage. We have permanent protection to reduce damage. We have Vow of the Untamed to reduce damage. And in normal fights in PvE, you can also be in range, you can dodge, you can have barriers from this skill and every other cantrip skill, and you can have your bit tank for you. And we have even multiple sources of healing. For a start, when you have this effect, so every 30 seconds you will have some serious healing from this. And both your weapons have the Unleash Ambush skill to heal you for the targeted hits, and also for the mace it have an extra effect of healing on it, as you can read very low on the tooltip here, Rambling Growth. It have an extra healing that will affect you and your bit. The second skill for the mace is actually 2 times healing. So this healing that on it happen on the initial damage and on the delayed one, as you can see, one and the second one. And also this is the healing of the ambush skill, and if it lands a hit, it will heal you for the seeds themselves. This skill will help heal your bit, as you can see this effect, and this one will give you barrier, an extra barrier for every target you hit, and cleanse condition, and this one is simple days. But remember, if you keep getting nature strings, you will end up with force of nature, which means you grow larger, you get extra damage or do extra damage by 25% and healing to others by 25%, and you reset all those 4 skills, so you get those 2 heal from the second skill another, so a single rotation will give you 4 heals from this, 2 heals to your bit from this with double the protection, double the regeneration, 2 times the stun, and also 2 times the barrier with condition cleanse, 2 times the stability, and 2 times the damage and 2 times the days. So once you have the effect force of nature, what happened? You reset your mace skills, you gain a modifier for your bar damage, a modifier for healing to other, and your bit gains the same modifiers with the stability. You gain 5 stacks of stability. So let's look at it simply like that. And as you can see, my bit also got it. Got the stability double, because we explained how the boons work, and got the effect of growing larger and having increased damage and everything. So the effect of the mace happened to you and your bit. You reset the cooldown, you gain the extra damage, the extra healing, the stability, and it happened to you and your bit. Which get me to comparing the mace with the hammer, the older version. So if we look at them side by side, why this will be my main version. If you play in Untamed, you can have access to extra DPS from the hammer or the utility side with the CC, the mobilize, the protection, the stun, the barrier, everything. So hammer will give you 2 sources of barrier, 1 source of immobilize and protection, and 2 CC side. Or you have full DPS with a little bit of boon from this one. Now the mace, you have to keep in mind that it might take longer to actually apply hits or something like that, and also on the Unleash Ambush skill it gives you stability. But for mace you have to keep in mind it might in general be considered longer time to cast its skills, but you can cast its skills twice in this build. Which means you get 2 times the healing, which there is no healing from here, and regeneration also doesn't exist. You gain 4 times the CC instead of 2. You have stability from here, even if it's a little bit less, it can compensate for the stability on the Unleash Ambush. You still have Immobilize from the Unleash Ambush and Cripple if you want it. You still have the protection, double the protection, so it's significantly higher. And you have 2 barriers, exactly like this one, while Condition Cleanse, and there is no Condition Cleanse here. So it's simply superior. Besides, if you want to really go for the DPS, you have to be in Unleashed form. Not only because those skills do more DPS, it because if you want to land the barrier, the days, the stuff, you will have to have your bit unleashed, which means you lower your damage by 25% ongoing from Vow of the Untamed. If you play any other thing like a Soulbeast or something, you can choose the skills as you want, so you can have all your modifier basically while running barrier and days and stuff and ignore those, or you can have full DPS. However, if they don't change mace, if they don't nerf it or do some significant change or buff the hammer, for example, higher than this, mace is simply better for the things it offers, for the healing, for the boons, and for the damage, because if you keep using those skills to gain those benefits, you lose insane amount of damage, so mace is simply better. Now for my bit choices, I always run turtle. If you're playing support, if you're playing open world PvE, if you're playing in competitive, I keep turtle on almost every build. Unless the build is uniquely need a specific bit, I will not change turtle. And turtle can give us protection that's very much increased. We already can have permanent protection in general, but it's easy to have it if it's drop or whatever happen, or you get CC'd a lot or something like that. And it is a projectile barrier, and it's a very tanky bit, basically a bear, so it can take damage from you and have some very decent CC access. However, only when I want to survive or my bit to really tank for me, I use turtle. Simply, I don't switch bit unless I need that. So I'm always stuck to the other bit, a bit that dedicated for damage, that will get the effect force of nature like me and just keep dishing out damage and cleaving my enemies. And for that I go for Jacaranda. It is a bit tanky and a bit strong, can heal herself, and you can heal her with those skills and give her boon, and so it can survive for extended period of time. The only other bit I'm tempted to run, and I have tested with, but you will lose about 1k DPS because of it. It's weaker than Jacaranda in general. It is the new one. The fact that its skills are quite fast, they will go through any projectile reflection, and it have a very strong CC, which actually a days not a single projectile that will immob the boss and the boss simply move away from you like Jacaranda, is a new one. And it is very tempting to run, honestly, and very strong and can cleave really good. But unless ArenaNet decide to increase its damage a bit or buff it, I'm not seeing it that useful compared to Jacaranda. We have a very high DPS anyway, so you can use it if you want and sacrifice a little bit of damage, but I find Jacaranda is simply stronger. And you don't need to go for something that's very powerful when it comes to CC in order to compensate, like you go for Bear. Bear is very strong CC, but it's very weak as a bit in damage, so you would lose a lot of your DPS. So Jacaranda is probably my choice still for now. Now for the rotation. Let me explain the rotation in general. So you need to start with Fury. So if you run around in the open world or something like that, you can cast the Warhorn immediately, or if you want to keep it for CC or something you don't want to start with it, you can start with this skill, whatever, it doesn't matter. However, usually of course you're gonna be using Warhorn a lot, or already have Remnant of the best fight of Fury, but start with the Fury in general, and you can cast Warhorn freely to gain the swiftness and simply move around. So I start with, if you really want the full rotation, I start with Force Fortification, cast, and Warhorn 4 to do as much hits as possible, since every single hit will shave off 1 second of the cooldown, whether this hit come from you or your bit. And spam my bit skills, and then go to Unleash mode, cast my own skills, and under the feet of the enemy I use Exploding Spores. I switch weapon, I cast the Unleash Ambush skill again, since we always have an on weapon swipe because of the trait Let Loose, and then cast skill 2, 3 and 4 in whichever order, it doesn't really matter. And skill 5 would be the last. Why? Since you are Untamed, you're not playing any other ranger, the Unleash Ambush skill will give you a Nature Strength stack. So you want 1, 2, 3, 4, and then get the 5 from this, so you would glow larger and reset the entire skills. If you didn't cast those 3 skills and cast this one before, this one give you 2 stacks. So one of those skills will not be casted 2 times, it will be casted only once, since the reset will already be happening. After you grow larger, this is the first skill you cast, since the cooldown is so short that you will get it again before the rotation continue, and I will explain in a second. And then I would probably cast this skill, and then those 2 doesn't really matter the order. So you would move out of the Unleash after that, and cast those 2 bits skill, they will become of cooldown. You will get the Unleash Ambush back, you will enter again, cast the new Unleash Ambush, and this one will come off cooldown since we cast it early. Switch weapon, cast the Unleash Ambush of the axe, use whatever skills of cooldown already from the axe and your bits casting, and go back about the rotation again until you reset the Unleash Ambush, cast it again, move to the other weapon. And we will look at the rotation with each other right here in action. I heal, as you can see, so I copy the boons, I don't waste the stability and stuff like that. I use my elite again to copy my boons again, to keep up the stability and vigor and stuff like that. I heal out of unleash, so I don't waste time wasting my damage. Switch weapon. And as you can see, the DPS is started with 24k with this setup, 21, 22, and you can keep up around 20 or barely 4 into 90s with this setup or this rotation in general. So it's very strong, it's very close to the hybrid. Honestly, it's the spike is higher than my main build or the hybrid one, the Celestial Conditioner, and the constant damage is around the same. Your damage is insane, your boon is insane, and this build is arguably clearly superior to the hybrid Untamed when it comes to boons or helping other. If you're running around the world, if you're helping in a meta event, you will be dishing a lot of healing, regeneration, protection, and you have your Warhorn. You would be helping your allies a lot with everything. Even using a beast ability will heal others, so it's very useful in the open world. However, the fact that it can keep up permanent boons would increase the damage of the hybrid a little bit more around other players, because they will cover when your boon fall. Unlike this one, your boon never falls. You will always have the permanent mind, the permanent fury, the permanent protection, regeneration, everything, and also the increased damage that come from those permanent boons from this one. So it's up to you which one you want to play, but I say Power Ranger in the enjoyment of open world solo PvE have never been better. This is the best version we ever got for solo ranger. Enjoy it, and if you have any further question in the comments, put them, or any other thing, feel free to discuss anything. This is a great space for it. That's it for the video, and I will be seeing you next time.